What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 722 of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week. I'm Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
And Rob D. Felice.
Hey.
And of course, all of you as well. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you in advance for leaving your comments below and tell us what you think about all these topics that we're breaking down here. Make sure that you also hit up the Discord server and chat it up at any point in time with the different people over there. Join those folks and have some fun. And keep in mind, too, if you are on YouTube and leaving a comment rather than Facebook, Twitter, or smarkamoment.com or any of the other places, then you should also hit the like button on this, subscribe, ring that notification bell, get your email alerts set up for live post shows, which we're going to be on a little bit of a hiatus right now. Or, potentially. I don't know 100% for sure if I'm not going to do something while I'm in Brazil, but I'm banking on probably not. Most likely not doing a post show like that, but we'll see. Maybe. Keep in mind too that if you want to help us out on the monetary side of things, that you click on the thanks button, that you click on the Patreon and the YouTube channel membership over on YouTube. Even $1 a month, greatly appreciated. $5 a month and up is where you get your early access to content, like those tier lists that we had done ahead of time, and any other kind of content along those lines that we just put up and record in advance, then set up for a later schedule. The Darkcast is another tier for that too, and Pick Poison. Redbubble and TeePublic is merchandise. Go ahead and pick something up there if you're interested in that for that. Fanboys Anonymous, or if we're just a Mango tees, if you like shirts that say things like, I don't know, I've got the community college shirt. And got some political things on there and stuff too that I'm sure I'm surprised haven't gotten taken down. But hot tag wise, we got some interesting topics to get into this week, where we got our usual breakdown of our TV recap stuff, but then we also have some things like some trademark stuff, some people leaving companies, joining companies, I guess rejoining companies, and re-leaving, and all sorts of things in between. So let's just start getting into it, I guess. The game plan as far as bouncing around between topics, I don't really have anything set in mind that we got to start off with. So I guess let's talk about one of those topics that, more than anything, not going to be too much to talk about here, but WWE has trademarked the name PJ Vasa. I'm assuming it's Vasa. It might be Vasa. I don't know. Vasa. And very quickly that became all right, well, I'm pretty sure we could tell who this is. And then it's confirmed at this point. It is Penina Tuilaepa, who is in LFG. And for trademarking her name before the LFG finals and having her change her social media over to that, she's in the finals. And I'm pretty certain that means that she wins this season. So it hasn't aired yet, but it's between her and Danny Sakelski for the women's division. And then on the men's side of it, it is Drake Moreau and Harlem Lewis. So I don't know, between those two, I think that both of those are their trademark names, if I remember correctly. So either one of them could potentially win. You guys don't watch LFG, so you guys haven't seen Penina, but I think she's got some potential to her. So look out for PJ Vasa. The name itself, it's a name. I'm assuming you guys have no opinions about that, but obviously if you do, let me know.
I mean, I've seen her. I've done a couple articles on some things that she said. She seems like she's passionate, so I can see her being somebody who stays with the profession for a while. And I'm sure they will at least try to make something of her from the start. Hopefully it works out.
I mean, to be fair, they haven't done too much with Jasper Troy and Tyra Mae Steele. Oh, Shiloh Hill's also in the finals too, potentially. I don't know. It's between those three.
Well, Tyra Mae Steele is getting more involved on NXT programming. And Jasper Troy, they launched him. It seemed like they were high on him, and then they got cold feet. But
they even did something weird this week where he stood out to be pick me for Team NXT, and immediately afterward Trick was just because Trick says we need somebody that's big and a powerhouse, and Jasper's right there, and he steps up, and then Trick is Josh Briggs. It's what the fuck? Jasper's literally right next to you. So I don't know what that's about, but I'm assuming we see PJ Vasa popping up on Evolve / NXT pretty soon. And check her out. One person you're not going to see in that system anymore right now is Edris Enofe. The EOE has left WWE. He did not ever get that tattoo. I've been seeing plenty of articles and comments speculating, the guy that got the tattoo, it was a joke. He didn't actually get the WWE tattoo. But it's a good thing that he didn't.
That was long since confirmed that he didn't get the tattoo.
Yeah, but they just, they saw that post at one point and then that burned in their brain, I guess. He's left, and he had said, the only statement that I've heard about this was him saying that he's trusting his gut. And I'm kind of assuming that means, and it's pure speculation on my part, they probably had his contract coming up and they probably offered him the same rate that he was at before, the same situation as Jasmine Nix. And I would assume, based off of how he was passionate about pro wrestling, that he's not just done with pro wrestling. And he's probably thinking, hey, I can go elsewhere, make a bigger name for myself, and be, more valuable and more successful than if he just stuck around in NXT. Because for you to be in NXT as long as Enofe had been, and to never be pushed all that much in NXT, and then to be demoted to Evolve, and to not even be the Evolve champion, but to just be you're an upper mid card heel that can put over people that we're actually interested in. His career wasn't heading in the right direction. So I don't blame him for leaving, but I'm also kind of curious if maybe this means something else. Maybe the whole trusting your gut and not wanting to be in the company anymore. Maybe it's something like a morale thing, or maybe it's a money issue, or I don't know. But I liked Enofe enough that I could see more potential in him outside of the WWE system. And it's something that I think I'd keep an eye on him. I wouldn't be like, this guy's immediately gonna, jump straight to the very, very tippy top of the industry and be lighting the indies on fire. But he could. I think there's a chance.
I think he showed enough of a good sense of humor and initiative to be I'm gonna get the WWE logo tattooed on me and get that bit going for a few weeks at least. And I thought that was funny. I think between the ropes, he could be, very good. We don't know. He's only worked that style. I want to see if he goes elsewhere, if he tries to do the indies, and then see what kind of wrestler and character he can become. But yeah, I wish the best for him.
I haven't seen too much of Edris Enofe, but any thoughts on his potential whereabouts, or if you'd like to see him pop up anywhere or something like that, Kellen?
I mean, not really, because most of I primarily only watch AEW nowadays and some Ring of Honor and bits and pieces. So I think that those are already full enough that they don't really need to have somebody else join their ranks right now. So yeah, I think this is just the opportunity for him to explore the independent circuit and see if he can find a niche for himself. Because from what I do remember of the stuff that I saw in NXT, he kind of had that a bit of a goofy character with him and Malik Blade as a tag team act, but he didn't really seem to have an identity. So I think this is, if he wants to pursue this long term, then I think he needs to find himself and find what he wants, not necessarily his character to be, but what he wants his identity in pro wrestling to be moving forward. So yeah, this is the opportunity for him to do that if he is passionate about pursuing this long term. It's about using a chance to be on the independent circuit, wrestle some new people, try some new styles, get some different opportunities going, work your way up from use the basis that you got in NXT and the initial teachings you've got there, and just try and expand your repertoire and don't feel as contained by the WWE style of things.
He's had a couple tweaks of his character over time. where he's shown a little bit of range here and there. Like he was kind of goofy with Malik Blade, and they were like, hitting on Mandy Rose and such. And then they had like the generic, we're just wrestlers that really want to wrestle, and we were so passionate, blah, blah, the way that like fucking everybody has, and it's all boring. In NXT, he didn't really explore much of the heel character side of things, but in Evolve, he's been doing, like, he kind of wears like a, like a royal robe, and is sort of doing like the cocky heel, what if he would have won King of the Ring type of a thing, but without, a crown in the same sense. So it seems to me like that's kind of the gimmick that he wants to go with, is more of like the cocky heel, I'm the best at everything character, which it can work if you're good at it, but at the same time, like fucking so many people do it. So it's also like, it's hard to stand out. And he didn't do anything that stood out to me as being like, that guy's going to catch a lot of attention for, his promo work or his in-ring work or whatever. But he's a great example, I think, of like solid all-around performer that if you put him in like an MLW, I'm assuming, like if that's the top guy, I believe it. And I could see him going, I mean, I don't know what the relationship is between TNA and WWE, where like if it would make any sense for people to go between them, but we've seen plenty. I could see him being a bigger deal in TNA.
We're going to talk about the relationship between WWE and TNA when we talk about that NXT Women's Survivor Series.
Yeah, that's
I do have to also just say, because again, I can't judge him too much because I haven't seen any of his recent work, but it's a case of, I feel like the comparison point of like somebody who like didn't even really make an impact in NXT and was dropped down into the lower reaches of Evolve, and just the assumption that he'd come into a place like MLW and immediately be like considered the top guy is a bit like, it's a bit of a over exaggeration of what the state of the independent circuit is. In certain indies he would be, but it's a case of kind of hold your horses a little bit. He hasn't, even though he's shown like maybe glimpses here and there, he's not proven anything to anybody in terms of his level.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt Tony's flow there, but I did think that was hysterical that he was just like, yeah, MLW top guy, poor MLW. Like,
I haven't seen anything from MLW, so like I'm judging based off of the idea. Like, if you were to give him some belt in GCW, I'd be like, all right, I believe it, like, and MLW reads to me as like, you're not necessarily in a position where you're a top person elsewhere, but if you have what it takes, you can maybe get some spotlight. Like, somebody like a, Baron Corbin's like a champion there, right?
But
Baron Corbin's a much bigger deal than Edris Enofe.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, Baron Corbin is still Baron Corbin. Like he's not coming in as, this wasn't like when Mercedes went to AEW. It's Baron Corbin.
But he's coming off it as like a guy that's had close to 10 years on the main roster, well, over 5 years, like on the main roster of WWE, compared to a guy that wasn't deemed good enough to stay in NXT for the entire duration of his time there. I'm
looking at the MLW website right now, and I see
like Matt Riddle's a champion there. He's headlined several WWE pay-per-views.
You've got like Dijakovic does stuff there as well, or Dijakovic.
He's tag team champions with Baron Corbin.
I see Austin Aries against Paul London. I see Kushida, Shotzi. I mean, like, there's a variety of people in MLW that are like some bigger. You mentioned like Matt Riddle, and
now what you could realistically say is he can come into an MLW, find his footing.
Yeah, be part of like a faction or group, like start something out there, and
I think he could do some shots for ROH, maybe find some footing. Not saying sign him to ROH, but like just like a Lacey Lane, the former Hayden Carter. She's doing some shots in ROH, and I think I'd put him in that same category. And even then, he's like lower than where she was.
Yeah, because she had indie experience. Like he's going with nothing beyond just working in NXT and Evolve he's been just entirely in the WWE system. So yeah, so it's a case of he might get a better deal than people just starting out from scratch, but it's like he's a completely unproven commodity. And so I'd say right now you're looking at your local independents and like one-shot job deals. Like if he was going to like MLW right now, I'd say he'd probably be a jobber.
Like I don't know the positioning of somebody like a Brock Anderson in MLW. Is he treated like a commodity, or is he just like pure enhancement?
He had done some faction stuff. He was part of this group called the Rogue Horsemen, because of course he was. He's kind of teaming with CW Anderson. Go figure. And they're doing that. So he found his footing. And I think Enofe, what I would do if I was Enofe is try the local indie scenes, do some freelance wrestling, if you can get the GCW spot, do that. If you can, just try some things out. If he wants to continue wrestling, I'm assuming he does, because, he was passionate about it when he was in WWE, and I'd like to see him, do his thing. I always want to see everybody improve. Like I really enjoy how I can talk about Lash Legend as such an improved wrestler. I want that for literally everybody. Find your niche, find your spot, and go be a star.
Speaking about being a star, Braun Strowman might be a star in a future Friday the 13th movie. It's some talks about him being Jason Voorhees.
No, there's not. Okay. Pause. He was doing an interview to promote his role or cameo in, it was a Deathgasm 2, and told Collider that, I want to be Jason Voorhees, and hey, I may know somebody that if the license could ever get picked up again, I might have a shot at that. I think Strowman's awesome. I think he'd be a great horror movie villain. I don't know if he's going to be Jason Voorhees. I think he's a little on the big side.
The quote that I had seen was, there may be some talks about it with people that I know in my agency. If we could get everybody back on the same page and allow the things to work, I might be the next Voorhees. So like,
that kind of sounds like I know a guy who knows a guy.
It could be.
I know a guy who knows a guy.
And if it could very well be just together, him putting it out there in the universe, the way that like Ben Barnes just tweeted out something or whatever, being like, "Can I please be Batman?" Like, like it could just be that, but at the same time, like I'd believe it. Jason's this big hulking monster. Braun Strowman's a big hulking monster. It's not like he needs to be, have like great acting chops. He's just going to wear a mask and walk around and kill people.
The funny thing about that to me as a wrestler is that back in the day, that was like, they used to put wrestlers in that mask all the time. Like I think Sid worked in that mask. Like that was just a generic big guy, get a hockey mask. You're doing the Jason thing now. So that's funny to me. Like Kane did that as, I think it was like Unabomb wore a Jason mask. So that's funny to me.
There's that even guy, funnier, Jeep Swenston was Bane in Batman and Robin, and he was like some
movie.
Some pro wrestler stuntman. Kurgan is in like fucking God knows how many things. Like, people. Fucking Kevin Nash was Super Shredder. Like people forget about that.
The funny thing to me is most people went straight to that quote and skipped over the fact that he said, "Yeah, I'm pretty much retired." It was like, okay. Anyway, he wants to play Jason Voorhees.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really all that surprising for him to be pretty much retired. Like, he wasn't really wrestling super crazy much in this last run, and when he was his knees were pretty shot, and like he's already won the world title. He's already a Triple Crown champion and all that stuff. Like, better to step out, you know. Maybe he'll come back and do like one match
title.
or something in the future, like put over Obafemi or something.
He's already won the world title. He beat Goldberg at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That guy.
I like the idea. I'm, not interested in another Friday the 13th movie. I've never been a fan of the series, but I'd be down. Like if I were a casting director, for sure he would be somebody I would be thinking about. Because you got to look at somebody who's big and, who's got some kind of presence, and then who understands something. Because there are people that in the most recent Alien movie, which, by the way, Alien Earth, for anybody that hasn't checked it out, good series. But Romulus had this big alien creature, and they took a basketball player or something, and he did the motion capture for it. And mocap is one thing that's already difficult enough as it is. I say that having never done mocap, but I can guarantee you it's fucking difficult. And to get a basketball player or something to be an actor in that kind of an environment is already a whole thing. So if you can get somebody who has some kind of screen presence and some kind of acting experience, as much as WWE is not you're not working acting classes in the same way, it's still a massive leap up from some other people, that's for sure. So if they do that project, I could see him potentially being Jason in the future.
New IP. Anyone? We really need another Friday the 13th? Fucking create something else. Create something new. Do that.
Nah, they can't do that. He's got to repeat it over and over and over again. Outside of that kind of stuff, we're talking about crossover things. This AEW and DC crossover has me perplexed and excited. They're going to do something for New York Comic Con, which I've been to New York Comic Con a couple times before, did press for them and stuff, and it's a fun event. I haven't been there in a couple of years because of multiple different reasons, one of them being COVID. And all that. I didn't want to, if I got sick at the regular New York Comic Con, can't imagine what it would be like post COVID. But they are going to do a Justice League meets All Elite Wrestling crossover thing. It's a 2-issue comic book series that, if you've paid any attention to any kind of crossover comic book things, they're never good. It's never in this one, the X-Men team up with the Leprechaun from Lucky Charms, some kind of crossover thing with that or whatever it might be. They're never good, but at the same time, they can provide some interesting, funny little interactions and stuff. And more than anything, I just looked at the graphic that they have for this, and it's artwork by Travis Mercer, covers by Lucas Meyer, for anybody that's interested in that. And it's just got, Batman is next to Orange Cassidy, and Kenny Omega is stuck between Nightwing and Wonder Woman. Hell yeah. That's great. I don't know why Guy Gardner is one of the few DC characters they decided to throw on there, but I guess he's getting more popular after Superman.
I was gonna say, he's in Superman, bro.
But they gave Darby Allin his flamethrower. They just decided that that's important enough. And Hangman Page is right up at the front, Swerve's right there with Tony Storm and Mercedes and all. There's more AEW people on there than the DC characters, and I'm curious to see what happens with the story where it says that I'll just read the thing. In this epic tale, AEW's finest, including Mercedes Moné, Will Ospreay, Darby Allin, Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page, Timeless Tony Storm, Willow Nightingale, Orange Cassidy, and Kenny Omega, team up with the legendary DC superheroes, including Aquaman, Batman, Nightwing, Guy Gardner, Jon Stewart, Hawkgirl, Zatanna, Wonder Woman, and Harley Quinn. I don't see Harley on this picture, so that's interesting. Together, they must recover the big galactic belt and prevent a cosmic catastrophe. Hell yeah, man. I'm down for that.
Yeah, it's a cool little event to be put on. I think like it just shows that AEW appeals more to the nerd of wrestling, and comic book is the nerd of entertainment, realistically. So you want to see these sort of crossovers because I think just like there's a lot of cross appeal. Or there's a lot of people that would who'd probably check out DC and check out comic books and that kind of genre that maybe don't watch professional wrestling or have watched in the past and haven't checked it out in a while, maybe grow out of it for whatever reason. And this is a good opportunity to try and carve a niche more into that larger audience. So yeah, and it's just a cool thing to see because you imagine because they're going to be DC Comics is going to be the presenting sponsor for Full Gear as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you can only imagine on that show there's going to be a lot of cool cosplay costumes.
Oh yeah,
for the wrestlers as well. So imagine like because Ricochet had the Nightwing cosplay that he did a couple of years back in WWE, I think for SummerSlam or something. So he'll probably be able to bring something out for that as well. But you imagine there's like plenty of comic book fans in AEW that will relish the opportunity to cosplay some of their favourite superheroes at that event and it to feel natural and not just forced. So yeah, I think this is just a cool little thing of bringing two nerd fandoms together.
Yeah, I want to see some deep pulls here. Like I want I want people to show off their fandom. And like it's one thing like obviously if somebody's like wearing gear that's based off a Green Lantern or something, it's like, oh, that'll be cool. And I'll almost assuredly end up giving it my like favorite ring gear of the year thing at the end of the year awards or something. But like if we get, say Tony Storm is dressed up as like Donna Troy instead of the typical Wonder Woman outfit, or like fucking Kenny Omega pulls out like an anti-monitor kind of ring inspired gear, I'm going to be like, all right, extra points for whoever is a fan of Boston Brand or something. So I don't know what we're going to do as far as Full Gear at that time frame with that crossover, but I want to try to do something to cross over Fanboys Anonymous and Smark Out moment. I talked about that earlier this year with the whole like Marvel DC Survivor Series thing that I'd done before, and I was thinking about doing a thing and it ended up falling apart or whatever. Maybe I'll revisit that in some fashion. We'll do some kind of DC
We have
thing.
to match the members of the Don Callis family to the members of the Bat family.
I'm definitely not going to say that, somebody like Trent is not going to be, Red Hood. But, there's plenty ideas I'm sure that we could brainstorm. And if anybody has any suggestions as well, if you want us to do something in particular, let us know. Give us some time to brainstorm and think of some different things. But hell yeah, you cross over pro wrestling and DC, Marvel, that kind of stuff. You're speaking my language, that's for sure. Let's go back, talk about some TV stuff and kind of wrap up some other things and get some predictions for next week and all that in here. SmackDown tonight has nothing that's all that crazy going on and, factors into last week and all that stuff. There were a few things that have been like, in typical fashion, like things happen on SmackDown, but we usually don't address them too much because by that time it's already a full week. But like, you can't go anywhere if you're Meechin and BFAB. They don't even win those matches to set up title matches against Julia and Kiana James anymore. JC Mateo popped up with the whole MFT thing again. So for some reason, I guess they feel the need to just like drag out the MFT story and give them nothing so that they can spend like 5 weeks with Solo being like, and let me reintroduce you everybody. Seems kind of weird. So I'm assuming that tonight it'll probably be Solo going like, oh, and here's Talatanga, and he's standing behind me.
Well, obviously this is the plan to reintroduce Tamatanga and just say he's healthy. And I don't love it because they were such a big act by you reintroducing these people, but I do like that it feels like you're reintroducing them and maybe they can be away from the concept of the Roman of it all, of the bloodline story from years ago. They can kind of carve their own path.
I hate the MFT name. I wish they would change that.
It's his family tree, but with Jeff Cobb.
Yeah. Javon Evans and Sami Zayn had a hell of a open challenge match. That was great.
What a surprise.
Yeah.
I love this open challenge thing. Javon's going to be so good when he gets to the main roster. He's so good now. We're going to talk about some fun stuff he's doing.
I can't wait for the next 10 years.
See, that's my problem. But we've talked about that a lot in this podcast lately, and I won't go down that road. Yeah, but I'm a big fan of Javon. I am a big fan of open challenges, but I hope that Sami Zayn faces quite a larger challenge in this next one.
What a night. I'm sure. Wait, I don't think. Have we ever talked about that on this show?
I don't know if we've ever done that on the show, but yeah. Basically, whenever I think of Boba Femi, I also just go, "Boba Femi, what a night."
I don't know why that popped into my head that one day, but I'm glad that it became a stem.
Thanks, jerk.
I don't even know the rest of the lyrics that I would have applied to it, but for some reason it's just Boba Femi, what a night. I think that's funny. This, Kit Wilson calling Damian Priest toxic masculinity, and then Damian Priest throwing him through a fucking wall. And then last week, Wilson's in a cast in a wheelchair, and then he just kind of fucks him up again or whatever. I'm assuming that Damian Priest does that again tonight because he's been advertised as like being in action, but they're not advertising a match with Aleister Black, so he's just probably going to beat up Kit Wilson.
Aleister Black.
Aleister Black? Yeah, it's another fucking step. Tonight we do have Sami Zayn with another U.S. Open Challenge. We've got Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton against the Bronze, and I'm assuming that Seth Rollins comes out and costs them that match. And we're gonna get a Tiffany Stratton promo thing with Stephanie Vaquer. One thing that happened last week that for a short time frame it became a story. The Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, and Nia Jax match had a botched finish. Everybody makes mistakes. It's fucking, whatever. Things happen. It was bad, though. Like, it was pretty bad. And, it's not going to go on my end of the year awards of, like, a major thing to be like, oh, my God, let's talk about that for 10 minutes. But, yeah, they fucked up. And people decided to yak on about that.
Meltzer called it the worst WWE match he's seen this year. So that's probably going to play into it as well.
Just gotta hype that up a little bit. And
but you know what, though? I think that speaks to the fact that even in that company, the matches are pretty choreographed and smooth, and this one was just a little bumpy.
Yeah, he actually usually rates WWE matches fairly well, so like to him to say that is a case of that must have been because clearly his issue wasn't just with the finish, which I saw the clips of was like really, really bad. Like just a comedy of errors on top of each other where like Tiffany's too late and so Nia Jax has to kick out a Jaded, which is just not what you want to see. Someone kicking out of a finisher that's very, very protected. And then decide to make a cover immediately. So it's I don't blame the referee at all for this. Because Nia should just kick out, but Nia decides she's just going to lay there, and because she knows that's what the finish was supposed to be, even though she's already had to kick out something else. So yeah, I don't blame the ref for that, even though I know some of the blame has gone her way. But at the end of the day, she knows what the finish is, and she knew that was the finish. But she also is like an intelligent human being, and so saw Nia Jax kick out and says, "Okay, I'm not." She's not going to lay there for the next 3 seconds after kicking out of another move when someone just rolls on top of her again. And she didn't because she decided to follow the finish, and so they had to come up with something else on the fly to make sure Tiffany retained. So yeah, as I say, it's kind of a weird thing because usually with most stuff it's like first impressions, and but this one is that with wrestling matches it's almost certainly like it's not how you start, it's how you finish, and if you finish badly, it kind of paints the whole rest of the match badly. Especially because Jade ended up bleeding from like her like eye socket or whatever the hell, like when she got thrown into the steel steps, she caught something. So it's like
not that long before this botched finish, you get like, this injury happens. So it puts the spotlight more on it and makes it look even worse. The match itself, like, I wasn't paying like hyper focused attention to it, but from what I saw, it was just like a fine enough match. It had some botchy parts. It's, I've seen worse on Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Dynamite, Collision, like everything across the board. Like I've seen worse this year, and whatever, it is what it is. But yeah, that became a story. So if we would have done the hot tags on like Saturday, that would have been a bigger topic or whatever. But going back to the Raw side of things, and setup of what we got there, we got the Dominic Mysterio retaining the Men's Intercontinental Championship over Rusev match. We talked about that beforehand. I was like, there's a chance that they give it to Rusev, but I don't think that they necessarily need to. And I'm just more curious about, like, they're kind of reheating up that Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio feud. So maybe they are getting ready to have that be like a split and everything, and then just do the, Finn versus Dom for the IC title thing. They didn't really position Rusev in a way to like turn babyface. I know that was another thing that people were like, is he a face now? And it's like, I don't think so. But they could be doing that kind of thing where like internally they're like, yeah, I'll probably just make him a face going forward or something. What else we had on there? Blah, blah, a bunch of stuff that really doesn't matter. They continue the Bayley and Lyra thing. It's the same story, basically, just like with slight tweaks each week. So there's no real point in talking about that. And we got names for the other El Grande Americanos. Tyler Bate in blue is Bravo, and Pete Dunne in red is Rayo. Gotta be honest, I'm a little bit disappointed they're not just still El Grande Americano.
I think it's almost getting to the point where it's interesting that they're branching out beyond El Grande Americano. Now it's like we're just creating the Americano stable, like the clowns that AAA has, and the Vianos, like you got Viano 1, Viano 2. It almost seems like we're just getting that. And look, I hate the presentation of 3, 4, if you count Gable, talented men, but like if it gets them in the ring with some fun matches, fuck it. I'm barely watching as it is. Maybe they'll have a banger that I can tune into.
What was that? When you said like something 2 or whatever, now I'm just thinking it's like, if I remember correctly, it's Adiaga 2, Badiaga, Aruglia.
All your favorite stars, like Adiaga
2, Badiaga. I think it's Aruglia.
Baruglia and Pizzosa.
Pizzosa is the other one I couldn't think of it. Oh my god, I love The Simpsons so fucking much. We're gonna do a new movie. I'm not really excited about that because it's only the first 10 seasons that count. But
and the series, you have a chance. Put them out of their misery, please.
And that's what my secret prediction for the Simpsons was. I secret. I'm going to say it on this now, so it's not going to be out secret after that. But I think they're going to do some sort of event in it where they go like some weird like dimension change thing, and they're going to come out with different voices. And they're going to come back with different voices, and that's how they change the voice actors.
Oh, you think they're going to like retcon it? Kind of.
Not necessarily. Yeah, well, either do something where they go into a different dimension, or like, and they come back and their voice is just slightly different, and that's how they decide to. Okay, they're retiring the old actors and they're bringing in a new cast so they can continue it for another 30 years.
That's actually interesting because the first movie, which by the way was going to be 20 years between movies. The first movie did see some actual changes retained. Like they changed the intro, they killed off some people. So you could theoretically do that. I'd be okay with it. As long as you retire the voice, like please let them rest. Like
yeah, I heard Julie Kavner's voice recently and it's like,
yeah, it's bad.
I don't know how she doesn't have like a worse voice with having like the raspiness of playing Patty Selma and Marge for all those years. Yeah. But that's interesting. That's I'm curious about that.
Even poor Nancy Cartwright. It's like, it's come on, it's time.
Yeah. You got to recast Adiaga, though.
Yeah, we can't recast Adiaga. Then you got to recast Adiaga too.
Every time I pass by, there's a shop in what's it called? Oh my god, I'm blanking on the fucking name now. Pele has his own shop somewhere, and I'm blanking on it. But I've passed by it a couple times, and when I've seen that, I immediately just think him holding out the wax paper. Just some just burns in your brain. It's crazy. So they had their usual shit from Raw. Really, there's nothing else to talk about. Like, there's other matches happen, whatever. No, it is what it is. You can tell I was enthusiastic about this episode of Raw. The NXT side of things, though, in typical fashion, NXT tends to have a lot more to talk about because that show's just fucking bonkers in some ways. And
they cram a lot of shit in.
They really do. And they've got, some weird characters and they change things up here and there. Raw is like going to the same thing and getting the same thing every week. NXT, you don't know what you're going to get on any particular episode. But the show started with Ricky Sainz and JC Jane in the ring. Ava comes out and says, since you're both the champions, you're going to be the team captains for NXT Invasion. And then Santino comes out, says, I do not trust Tricky Williams to be my team captain. And immediately offsets that because he says, Mike Santana is the team captain for the men. And I don't trust that NXT guy holding my TNA title. But Kalani Jordan's the head of women's division one. And then also says, by the way, let's try to justify renaming the show. He doesn't say it like this, but this is the transparency of it. We don't want to call the show NXT Invasion anymore because Israel got upset about it. And now it's going to be Showdown. So let's say, no, we have a partnership. We're not invading. We're just going to have a showcase. Actually, it's more of a showdown. I'll give them credit in one way of being like, all right, that's better than just renaming the show and just saying like, whatever, or having Ava be like, the show will now be called NXT Showdown. At least they tried to give it something. But at the same time, you cannot convince me that 22 years ago or 24 years ago, when they created the Invasion story, and they made the graphic that has the V in red, which for anybody who's fucking curious about graphic design and stuff, the reason why the V is bigger and in red is because V implies versus, not Hamas. Just,
what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What?
That is the thing that people were saying, oh, the big V, a triangle pointing down in red, that means that they're clearly trying to make this a Hamas thing.
Well, you gotta give it. Look, the kids weren't alive 24 years ago. They don't know.
They still have brains, right? They didn't bring back this invasion storyline between NXT and TNA and go, you know what? I think we should book it on a day that'll end up potentially riling people up and doing that. It's not fucking propaganda. It's something that I'm sure nobody thought of. And I'm defending a company that is fucking terrible with its politics. So do not conflate this as me being pro WWE getting into politics, because they're fucking disgusting with what they're doing in the American side of things. So that, and obviously this is not a podcast where we can start to get super into why is Israel controlling America and all the other kind of things that go along with that. But I think that's fucking absurd that they're just like, clearly this is a pro genocide, whatever fucking thing. And that's WWE's responsibility to. There was some article I was reading and it was like, oh, the timing of this is suspect. Fuck you. They just have it on a Tuesday. If it was the next day and if it was the October 8th, you wouldn't have bitched, right? Come on.
Timing of this is suspect because they're kind of programming the AEW show, but
exactly.
It's not about.
This was not some plot to get some kind of political thing going on there. And, WWE just must have been like, all right, fucking whatever. We'll just change it to Showdown. And, like, yeah, it's not the most important thing in the world, but, like, people got to stop pretending like the bubble that they live in is exactly the same thing that everybody else is thinking at every moment. This whole world caters to you, so you think that the whole world should cater to you, kind of a thing.
Well, yeah, it's my truth. Bitch.
Ugh. I absolutely fucking hate that phrase. I've had so many discussions about that over the past couple of years.
It's been run into the ground, and
I just inherently hate it. What do you mean, my truth? Truth is truth. My opinion, my experience, but it's not your truth.
My experience is probably the way to go.
Exactly what it is. That's the whole. But then again, I'm the type of person that goes, I cringe when I hear people say, "I could give a shit," because it's like, you mean you couldn't? Could not.
Very Ted Mosby of you.
I feel like it's a cross between Ted Mosby and Frank Grimes, because I feel like I'm just Frank Grimes all the time these days. Like, what do you mean that he's having he won the thing for contest for children? Again, we're back to The Simpsons. So it's NXT Showdown now. The logo now has a giant red W, which means fucking nothing, because they were just like, take the intern and have him go on Photoshop and change the text and just do that. But whatever the fuck, it's the same thing. They should have just called it Bragging Rights. Bring back that name.
They should.
But the teams for that were settled over the course of a couple different segments throughout the night. One we just talked about earlier with Jasper Troy, where it was just like, we need a big man like a Jasper Troy, or Josh Briggs right next to him who's smaller than him. And, Jada Parker beat Lash Legend, so that got her one of the spots. JC, Jane, and Fallon Henley had a little argument where Fallon was assuming that JC would end up picking her for the team, but Fallon got booked in a match against Lola Vice, and JC decided to go with Lola Vice, and she won. Lainey Reed flat out admitted that she was the one that attacked Lola at No Mercy, so they just immediately said the end of that story. She also confessed.
Spoiled it by accident.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they did put up the thing where they're like, they're the maths person, aka Lazy Lainey Reed. She also admitted that she attacked Jasmine Nix. So, we're just skipping through, which I'm perfectly fine with. It's not like it wasn't obvious to begin with. I'm surprised that they went with 4-on-4 as opposed to 5-on-5, because they could have incorporated some other people. But then when you look at the women's list, maybe they kind of felt like they needed to, because Kalani Jordan ended up picking at the end of the night the Inspiration and Mara Sade, Jakara Jackson, which she was like, Mara Sade. I was like, okay, I like that. So you had sent a message in the group chat, I think, where like on
no, I think this is
Facebook
just to you, where I was just like, this team genuinely is ridiculous, and it points out the biggest issue with the TNA partnership. Oh, they don't have that many like homegrown, for lack of a better word, stars at this point. The TNA women's team is literally an NXT superstar who is, for some reason, is just like, yeah, fuck these NXT people. I'll get to how she acts on TNA TV in a second, which contradicts everything. The Iconics, who, fair enough.
Former tag team champions, and
they're their own people, but they won the tag team titles at WrestleMania. Like, it feels like they're a level above here, just on accolades alone. And then it's Jakara Jackson. It's a woman who was on the roster 2 months ago, maybe?
5 months ago.
Like, not that long at all. And
it was earlier this year when they still had the Metaphor do their thing where they're all like, "Oh, it's so great to be back together. I hope I don't see all 3 of you leave next week."
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, and I like the use of Mara Sade because I think that makes a lot of sense. Of like, get her to confront Lash Legend. She's stepping up.
But Lash isn't on the team.
Which is also weird because the whole point was that Lash came out and said, "Bitch, I'm going to be on the team. I'm going to lead the team." And this reeks of, we had to counter program AEW, so we rushed this shit. And now what could have been a fun little event is just going to be another example of greed and counter programming. And that's the disappointing part. Because you could have created a fun event. And now you're just rushing it for the sake of counter programming AEW.
So you said, what does she act like on TNA when she's on Impact?
Yeah, so last time on Impact, she's like full-blown giggling with Trick Williams. And she's teaming with Trick Williams and Frankie Kazarian against Indy, Matt Hardy, and
Leon Slater.
Yes, Leon Slater. Thank you. Good, fun match, good match, but like, she was a heel there just for the sake of, I'm teaming with Trick and Frankie Kazarian. There's no direction here. And I'm sympathetic. We can backtrack a little bit and say this fell into their lap because Ash by Elegance, formerly Dana Brooke, has had to abruptly retire. Medical issue that's being kept close to the vest is all they've said so far. And
very curious what that is, but that sucks. And we didn't actually talk about that. So yeah, I mean, she on Victory Road, she was scheduled to face Masha Slamovich, and then that match got pulled, and everybody assumed that it got pulled because Masha is in the situation that she's in right now with the whole domestic abuse thing. But then we're going to have an announcement by Ash by Elegance, and I'm going into that going, okay, she's going to put out an open challenge, and she's going to fight somebody from NXT, and it's going to be like, or it's going to be like Zy Brookside or somebody is like, well, I want to step up and do something, or that she might end up just flat out having a match with Indy at that point. And instead she says like, well, I got some bad news and I got to retire, and thank you so much for giving me a chance here. And this was like going to be the most fun that I was going to have. And it's like, fuck, I feel bad for her. Cause like for years, Dana Brooke was at a spot where it was like, she could have been doing something a little bit. I never thought that she was like, the person to build the brand around in WWE, but like she was doing some stuff where I kind of felt bad for her. And then she finally gets this world title, and she didn't get a chance to do anything with it. That sucks.
Yeah, super unfortunate. Dana Brooke, Ash by Elegance is in the same category that I just mentioned about Lash, where like I like saying, wow, they really improved. Wow, I really enjoy watching them now. I'm not going to say she was like my favorite, but like she became an enjoyable character. She became something that was fun to watch. And it's unfortunate that she doesn't get to live that vision out. But now I understand all that means, crap fell into their lap, but like, why is Kalani Jordan just like, fucking TNA? Hell yeah. Like what is she doing?
Why is this team not Indy Hartwell, Xia Li, Xia Brookside, and I don't know who the fourth person would be.
But like even like Indy Hartwell being on the team, you could even take a Xia Li and be like, yeah, we're 4 women. If you take the inspiration with them, that like we found a better place in TNA, and then at least you got that where they're saying we found a better place in TNA, a place that allows us to be our true selves. But Kalani Jordan's just like, I'm gonna walk in the parking lot with that. What? You're on the NXT roster. What are you doing? Like,
and it's also weird that they had the segment where Jordan Grace goes up to Kalani Jordan and she's like, I don't like JC. I'd really like to be on Team TNA. And then says Joe Hendry's name wrong. And apparently she's been saying his name wrong for years. She just called him Joe Henry. And then both Kalani and Mike Santana are like, we don't trust the two of you because you're basically an NXT. So NXT superstar Kalani Jordan, who is TNA Knockouts champion and leading the TNA team, doesn't trust NXT superstar Jordan Grace, who had been in TNA far longer than she was. Nor does Mike Santana trust Joe Hendry, who is in TNA and not contracted to NXT.
But like, why isn't Joe Hendry more of a focal point here?
He should be like one of those guys that they're kind of going back and forth between. He could be like the mole on either side.
He could have been the mole, and then you like that's how you have him announce that he's signed with NXT or WWE or whatever.
It is more of a heel move, admittedly. So how do you necessarily do that? But it's not like it wouldn't make some sense, or that like he can't do the heel move to a heel where it comes off more.
Yeah, you put Eric Young on the team or something, and have. Boom, I betrayed Eric Young to finish our rivalry in TNA, but I'm also announcing here that I've signed with NXT. It's a babyface move because you're in the Performance Center. Yay, NXT. I feel like we just put more thought into that than they ever did. Like, and there's some other funny things here, too, on the men's side. Like, I'm guessing Eric Young probably didn't want to be part, even though he was in the crowd a couple of weeks ago. So Ziggler, nowhere to be found. And I'm guessing it's just like they might have asked him and he's like, nah, I did that for like 15 years. I'm good.
But Matt Cardona was on this episode helping Miles Bourne beat Josh Briggs so that Bourne could get a spot on the team.
And they tried to make sense of that by saying he's trying to impress Santino Marella, but then he doesn't get a spot on.
Yeah, it makes no fucking sense. And I liked what they did with Leon Slater and Javon Evans, where they were backstage and they were like, buddy, and they're just kind of like, man, this is going to be a good match together, and we respect each other. And then they team with each other against Nico Vance and Sean Spears and beat them, and then they're on opposite teams. So it's like, that makes sense. Like, that's the only thing that really makes sense out of the whole thing,
Everything those two have done has been logical. Where it's just like, we're going to flip at Bound for Glory, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Right.
And that's all you need to know.
And then, it makes sense for Mike Santana to pick Frankie Kazarian and Moose as two, like, perennial TNA guys. So set aside your differences and get that going. That makes sense. So, like, the men's team, Santana, Kazarian, Moose, and Leon Slater, that checks out. And the men's team on NXT looks kind of weak in comparison. It's Ricky Saints, true, NXT champion. Trick Williams, TNA champion. I don't know if that's going to lead into them losing because of Trick, but I'm kind of assuming that something like that. Miles Bourne's not the strongest contender, but, it is what it is. And then you got, who was the other one?
Javon.
That's fine, yeah. So it's like, okay, yeah, I would have tweaked Miles Bourne, probably, but the women's one that's just weird as all hell. And Ethan Page is going to face Mustafa Ali next week for the North American Championship, and it's a 2-year storyline coming back.
That is the best thing that happened on the show. That is the most logical thing you could have ever done, where he just walks in the door and goes, now then, about the title shot that I was supposed to have 9 days after you fired me, like, I kind of like it. And, I'm going to go a step further. I kind of would like to see him have a short run with the belt.
I wouldn't be opposed to it, to be honest.
I think it's a fun story. We've done enough with, like, Ethan Page is kind of doing a similar gimmick to him with the, slightly political. I'm the greatest North American. I think it would be fun if he just wins the title briefly.
Not going to happen, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I like that they did call attention to it and just be like, because that was a long thing of him with the North American title.
Yeah, I just did an article on him saying to Denise Salcedo that was actually a Shawn Michaels call, that he was a little nervous to go there, and Shawn was like, "No, you have to be real. Like, they know what happened to you. You have to talk about it from a realistic perspective." And I thought it was my favorite thing on the show. So shout out to Shawn Michaels.
Good idea, Sean. That definitely was like a highlight. Lyra Valkyria gave Tatum Paxley a doll that she had created. So Lyra's just all over the place now with, like, you know, making friends, frenemies, whatever it might be.
Cool.
I don't think there was anything else really to talk about on there. So Ruck is on the women's team as well. I didn't mention her, but she makes perfect sense because, you know, why wouldn't you book one of the spots being the person who's holding 2 championships at this time? And Zarya's upset about something, but she didn't really talk about it, so it's just continuing that story. I'm interested in that show. I think that they could have done a way better job of setting it up, but
absolutely,
well, is what it is. On the opposite side of things, when we get into, you know, what's the reason why they're doing this show is because they want to counter program Title Tuesday. That's because AEW Dynamite on Tuesday night next week is their homecoming special at Daly's Place. So they had their 6th anniversary of Dynamite on this week. Some of it's trying to set up some stuff for next week. And in typical AEW fashion, they had a match. They had a show that had, you know, lots of really talented people having a lot of, you know, really rock solid matches and good matches and all. The Young Bucks gambled away all their money.
Yes, that's what I was waiting for.
So we're back to poor, young, not as many bucks as before.
They came out. They were in the ring. Already started. Had the like the jobber entrance, and were entitled the Broke Bucks on their nameplates. So
I like it. They lost alongside Josh Alexander to Brodito and Kenny Omega, and this was just like a series of segments. When I was typing this out, I was like, oh man, like how many sentences am I going to get here? Because they just, like, one thing led into another. So it was like the Bucks gamble. You have the match. After the match, Brodito leaves. Just like, we won, great. Okay, let's go to the back. I was like, we're done here. And Kenny Omega sticks around, essentially just to get attacked 3-on-1. Jurassic Express makes their return. So they have been announced as returning, yet it was like, you know, if they're announcing them as returning, they're probably not wrestling a match. And instead they do this. So Luchasaurus and Jack Perry help out, but they also have Jack Perry argue with Kenny Omega because why wouldn't they? They've had issues. And it's not like just by returning and being a tag team with Luchasaurus again, it's going to make his issues with Kenny Omega go away. So I like that. But Perry still goes after Matt and Nick Jackson, and they fight to the back. And Omega sticks around, does his bit where he thanks the audience, does his farewell, good night, goodbye, bang, moi, whole thing. I botched it, but you know what I mean. And when he does the bang, the lights go out, and behind him is Andrade, who attacks him and joins the Don Callis family, and was not the only new member of the Don Callis family on this episode. So, first things first, Andrade's back in AEW. That didn't take long at all. This was like a week and a half since he got released from WWE.
Well, yeah, they had given like no 90-day release clause because he was fired outright, rather than they just decided to waive his 90-day release clause for whatever reason. But he was available straight away to come into AEW.
So that goes to show when we were talking about, like, is he leaving for a particular reason? Is he somebody who would be invited back in AEW, or is he just going to go elsewhere? Whether this was something that he had thought about and talked about a little bit ahead of time, I'm curious where that comes into, like, potential contract tampering, if that would be the case, but both companies do it, and I don't think anybody would really be able to not do that, because realistically speaking, like we talked about this with like the Hardys, for instance. If Matt Hardy's in AEW, you mean to tell me that Matt's not talking to Tony Khan and going, yeah, Jeff would be interested in showing up as soon as he can and whatever and all that? Of course he would be. I would be doing the exact same fucking thing. And I'm sure by proxy of, you know, kind of like discussion points back and forth, or even just regular fucking conversations, contract tampering ain't fucking, you know, it is what it is. If somebody doesn't want to leave the company, they're not going to leave the company. It's not something that you can really press. I am kind of wondering if Andrade knew that he would go back to AEW when he had this whole thing going on, or if it just happened to be one of those things where he failed a wellness policy thing, or whatever it might have been that happened. He gets fired, and then Tony Khan immediately just goes, oh, well, if he's fired, let me call him up. And then they just immediately figure out a deal, and within, you know, fucking half-hour conversation, they've sorted it out. But he's in the number 2 company now, back again, and seems like that's a good fit for him. Good enough.
He gets to make history as the first ever wrestler to go from WWE to AEW to WWE to AEW.
I saw the thing of that saying Andrade expected to be at the 2027 Royal Rumble, and then it was something else. Andrade confirmed to compete at All Out 2029.
So we'll wait and see what the overall plan is. It seems like, at least initially, the plan is for him to feud with Omega based on this, or at least like just be part of the On California and just be, you know, he could be a good tag team partner for Hechicero and other members of the team as well. So, you know, they're just building that up to be kind of a mini NWO type faction. So we'll, I think, you know, he's a very good wrestler, and that's what you just need to be in AEW for the most part. If you're not going to be like the absolute top main event level guy, you just have to be able to put on good matches every single week, which is something that Andrade can do. And he'll get to do it probably more often than he was towards the back end of his WWE run, where he was pretty much not being used outside of the tag team with Phoenix for a little while. So, yeah, I imagine we'll see him pop up in CMLL as well. I don't think it would be completely, it certainly wouldn't be unexpected now, because it does seem, at least from the service, that one of the reasons why he would be let go was because he seemingly didn't want to do anything with the AAA partnership. I know reports come out since that, like, the reason why WWE let him go was because of multiple wellness violations in the time that he came back to the company, which it's one of those things that I don't doubt, or I don't think that is inaccurate, but I'm more curious about the way they announced it, or how they've like let this get out, because obviously they've done it in a way to try and discredit his AEW appearance, to make it seem like, oh, he was the bad guy and like we had to let him go because of all these reasons. Like, first of all, why didn't we know about any of these wellness policy violations?
Yeah, why don't they announce them anymore?
Yeah,
because they don't even announce the releases. Like,
well, yeah, exactly. But like, it's a case of you decide to hide it while he was still there. Secondly, I'm not gonna like, you know, fuck it. I don't have nothing to really lose in the fight. But there are clearly guys in that company that are taking stuff and are being allowed to. Like, it just is. There's no way that Randy Orton and AJ Styles and Brock Lesnar look like the way they do without taking stuff. It's just impossible. They're too old, and they never looked this in shape at any point in their career prior to this. So, I'm just going to call, as I see it, they are clearly being enhanced in some way. So, like I say, Andrade probably was doing that as well, and WWE have decided to utilise that as a means of firing him, which is probably just because they didn't, like, he was having an attitude behind the scenes, or that both sides weren't getting on, and so they decided just, okay, we're just going to cut our losses and let him go. And he can be AEW's problem instead. So, as I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't I think it's a very high possibility that in 2 years' time we're going to be talking about Andrade going back to WWE or something else happening, because that's just the way that he operates. He just can't help himself one way or the other. But if you get
I say bless him for keeping the true spirit of wrestling alive.
Well, yeah, he's like what wrestling should be, which is just jump to promotions every couple of years or so, rather than get stagnant.
Jump companies. That's what I say.
Yeah, rather than just get stagnant and stay in the same place for like 30 years at a time. But I think that, but he's just eventually gonna get bored or gonna get annoyed about his position on the card or anything along those lines, and is going to like lash out one way or another. So, but if you can get like a year and a half's worth of good matches out of it, and him just playing his role in the Don Callis family, then I guess it's AEW doesn't really have much to lose. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. See what his role in the Don Callis family is. This super big Don Callis family.
Yeah, it did get bigger on later on the show. Kyle Fletcher retained the TNT Championship over Orange Cassidy. He was scheduled, for anybody who remember from last week, he was scheduled to face Hologram, but Hologram had this whole getting attacked angle and everything, and Orange Cassidy steps in and gets that title match instead. And then Hologram comes out and costs Orange Cassidy. And when they're doing that, I'm like, okay, this is probably the clone thing. But they're going to obviously play into it and be like, Hologram's bad guy for the next couple weeks or something. Well, they immediately just unmasked him. And by unmasking him, he unmasks this other mask. Which was like, I immediately started to laugh because it's just so stupid. But it's like, okay, he makes, he's El Clone. So why would he not be wearing a mask? But it's just like, I'm not a hologram. I'm also, I can't tell you.
So obviously the first thing is like super unfortunate for Hologram to receive it. So he sustained an injury to the same leg that he was injured with late last year, I think, that kept him out of action for a few months. So he had a reoccurrence of that, and Tony Khan basically said that we're not going to see him for the rest of the year at the very least. So that obviously sucks. He's never had a chance to really get the ball rolling. Even though he's been undefeated for so long, it's like he hasn't actually. Anytime he's about to get into like an actual meaningful feud or spot on this, because even though this would have almost certainly been his first loss, he was at least going to be heading into a program with the Clone and doing all of that stuff. So I think, it's just unfortunate timing for him. But I'm also happy that first of all we got to see an Orange Cassidy versus Kyle Fletcher match, because those two are awesome, and so they would have great matches with each other. And then the other thing, of course, is that they haven't dropped El Clon and have said, like, okay, we're just going to put you on ice until Hologram is back. They're actually, okay, we're just going to have him do something else here where he still gets involved and gets the victory and, like, costs Orange Cassidy the victory and gets to be part of the Don Callis family. So I imagine that his ceiling will be a lot lower than Andrade's, at least for a little while. But it's good that he actually has a place and will be on TV regularly going forward, rather than just shelved because the guy that he was supposed to be feuding with got injured.
I just don't know why they didn't just play up the hologram clone thing. Like, why not make it?
Because you don't watch Collision. Hologram got hurt, and they literally had to immediately announce he cannot compete physically.
So, but I think they still could have gotten around that. Hologram costs Orange Cassidy, and then they go, why did Hologram? I thought he was injured. And then you play.
You're saying like you keep him as Hologram for a while and make it seem like,
and have it be Hologram is mad at Orange Cassidy because he actually isn't injured, and he thinks that he stole his title shot, and so he's like, "Fuck you, dude! Like I needed that." And then you go with the whole like Hologram's part of the conglomeration, so you go with like, hey, why do you have an issue with me? Like I thought you were injured and I stepped in and took your title shot, but I didn't take it from you. If you were not injured, whatever, then Hologram's not even talking to us anymore. Now he's hanging out with the Don Callis family. What the fuck's happening there? And then eventually when Hologram's able to come back, Hologram attacks El Clone, and then it becomes, it's actually been El Clone this whole time. And,
I think the reality is Hologram's going to be out for way too long. And they had already put the pieces in play for the clone gimmick, so they're just like, fuck it, we'll just literally have him do what he was going to do if Hologram was in the match. But I see what you're saying, and I like the idea, but I think that they thought it was too many steps.
Well, at this point, the Don Callis family is, and I'm trying to do this off the top of my head.
I can try and help if you need it.
Technically, Brian Cage was not excommunicated from the group, as far as I can remember. He's injured, as is Mark Davis, and Trent is he still injured? I know he's been announced for.
He's back here.
Okay, so Trent's there with the other member of RPG Vice, Rocky Romero, and then you've got Lance Archer and El Clone, Andrade, Kazuchika Okada, Konosuke Takeshita, Kyle Fletcher, Hechicero,
Josh Alexander.
There's 12 people and Don Callis in this group.
Yep.
Remember when fucking NWO was like, yeah, of course Horace Hogan's in this, and of course, you know.
Well, it's more. I'm looking at it more of like, he's Jimmy Hart, he's Bobby Heenan. This is his stable of guys, and if need be, they will commingle. But mostly, it's just about the manager being a bitch, you know.
For the record, I wrote up an article saying that I like that there's this many people in there. It's a criticism in the sense of like, okay, you do realize you do have to slow down at some point, but at the same time, when Brian Cage is injured and you can't have the murder machines, you team up Lance Archer with somebody else. And then when you want to have, we're going to get going forward trios matches, 6-man tags, 10-man tags, you know, all-star, 8-man, whatever the fucks. We're going to continue to get those going forward. Tony Khan clearly likes them a lot, and it's a way to get a lot of people on the card and a lot of people to interact and stuff. It's one of the, you know, it's a crutch, but it's a crutch that people enjoy. The way that WWE fucking has every single episode of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown start off with a promo that leads to, and you're going to be in a tag team match. And it's like, oh, I didn't fucking see that coming. You know? And variety helps. So why would I not want 1 week to be Don Callis family has Josh Alexander and Hechicero and El Clone to help lose to Hangman Page as he's feuding with Konosuke Takeshita or whatever the fuck, you know, combinations. And then that way you don't have to have, if you want Kyle Fletcher to have a match against Hangman, you don't have to have Kyle Fletcher and the same two people and do the things that's happening with the Bronze. Because right now, the Vision, I'm fucking sick and tired of the Usos and LA Knight in every single variation of it's Jimmy and Jay against Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. Now it's Jimmy and LA Knight against Bronson and Braun. Now it's Jay and LA Knight against Bronson and Braun. Oh, now it's just Jimmy against Braun, but now it's Jimmy against Breaker, against Bronson. Oh, now it's Jay against Braun Breaker. Now it's Jay again. My God, how many fucking permutations can you take of the same three people over and over and over again? So the Don Callis family having this group of people, clearly some of them are more important than other ones. Kyle Fletcher's got a championship. Konosuke Takeshita is being treated as a major big deal. And Kazuchika Okada is like the, you know, the linchpin of this whole group. They're more important than Rocky Romero is. But that's okay because Rocky Romero could take the pin. Just don't add 7 more members to this team. You know what I mean?
Well, do like it could work still. Like if they have people with different stratifications, then it's fine. Obviously, you don't want to get like to an NWO thing, but
that's what I mean.
You could do. Well, you can do an NWO thing because the NWO in of itself wasn't bad. The bad thing about the NWO is that it went on for too long. So if you do this for like have the super big group for just like a year or year and a half or so, and then have a plan to actually end it and split them all out afterwards, or have them gradually be whittled off one by one, over time, then you can make it work. You just don't want to do what the WWE plan with the NWO was, which was to make it its own show and its own it's not just a faction, but make its own entity. Turn like what eventually became Thunder was supposed to be the NWO show instead. So it's or like NWO is going to take over Nitro, and Nitro is going to move on to Thunder spot. So yeah,
the other criticism too, that's the difference maker between these. Everybody reached a point where they knew that in every single NWO match, somebody would come out. Yeah. So it was always like, well, let's wait to see which member of the NWO is coming out to help out Hulk Hogan, or, you know, even if it was like lower tier people, it's like Conan is in the ring and fucking, oh God, I'm blanking on his name.
Vincent.
Vincent was the one, but fucking what was the other guy's name? That it was like
Scott Norton.
Scott Norton. That's the one I was trying to think of. Yeah. I was like Scotty something. Like I could only think of Scotty Riggs, and that was not him. But yeah, like even if it was like Scott Norton in a match, it was like, oh, is somebody going to come out and you know we're going to see Kevin Nash, we're going to see Scott Hall, something like that. But like they don't do that as much in AEW. So when you're watching Hechicero and Trent in a tag team match or something, the match is probably going to have an actual ending, and then maybe some other people will come out, but it's not going to be every single segment is going to be like that. So as long as they don't go into that territory, I think that'll help them a lot too.
Yeah, we also have to be pretty apparent in the fact that Takeshi's getting out of that group soon.
Yeah,
like probably within the next, I imagine probably within the next 3 months, probably either through the Continental Classic or just after the Continental Classic.
Yeah,
like I do think there's a very good possibility that the main event of Wrestle Kingdom is still going to be Takeshita versus Okada for the IWGP title after Takeshita wins it soon. So
when's he get that title match?
The 13th.
Yes, so we're only like just over a week away from him becoming the IWGP World Champion. Almost certainly, I'd say. I think it's highly unlikely that he doesn't win it. But yeah, I think that's probably going to be the route they go to, because that's the only way they can make a kind of worthy main event. Because they'll go into that and they'll be like, you could do some stuff in the Continental Classic as well, but you could push the idea that it's Okada versus Takeshita and like Doncas has set it all up to that being the match for the Wrestle Kingdom main event, and it's just going to be another case for like real friendly competition between these two guys, and then he will flat out turn on Takeshita and Okada will somehow become the IWGP World Champion again after the way that he left New Japan.
And then he'll be the unified champion between two belts that has a third belt for some reason, and also the IWGP.
And everyone and every New Japan fan's minds will collectively explode at the same time.
You'll see all a bunch of New Japan's back, baby.
No, it'll be the opposite. It'll be like, well, fuck, this is what we've come to now. Yeah, this is what we've come to. That we're like that the guy that left us in the lurch with, especially considering how much a lot of them are very anti-Okada now through the manner that he left. Even though, you know, it's the company's fault for not using him to get anybody over, but that's their fault, but they'll blame Okada for it instead. Just to him to come back with another company to win their world championship because they're in such a dire straits in terms of star power. Basically, the thing, another AEW guy in the main event of the show as well would just be, they'll pretty much say, we might as well just fold the company at this point.
They're taking notes from TNA. Okada's gonna
roll over for
New
the
Japan.
big guys. Yeah. Roll over for the heavyweights, essentially.
Okada leads Team New Japan, and his team is Takeshita and a couple other people from AEW.
Get FTR, former tag champions there.
It's Takeshita, Romero.
And then you throw one person in there as like the Leon Slater, and that's Gabe Kidd. And then they're like, but he's fucking on AEW all the time. And you're like, no, but he's a New Japan guy. And you're like, fuck you. That doesn't count. Yeah. Crazy setup with this Don Callis family thing and all. But I like it. You know, I like, again, I said, like, I do some things a little bit differently. Like, I would have dragged out the hologram thing a little bit more and all. But, like, you know, I'd be lying if I said that I wouldn't do a clone luchador thing if I had my own fucking promotion. I absolutely would. That's a guarantee. Like, that's one of the staple things that I would do. I used to do that shit with my action figures all the time. I do it in my fucking blueprints. You know, like it's, you know, I had an extra Green Ranger action figure. It's Evil Tommy. I had an extra, Spider-Man figure. It's, that one's going to be Kane. You know, it's got to be Kane. It's too good of a story. So, like, yeah. I don't fault them for doing El Clone. Mercedes Renee had a backstage thing where she said that she's never wrestled at Daly's Place. So next week, she wants to face somebody who is local. Somebody from Florida. And Harley Cameron came over with her little puppet and wants Mercedes to tag with her. And I like that Mercedes called attention to this because, you know, this is something I've been mentioning. It's like, well, Harley Cameron's basically teaming up with everybody. And Harley's just like, yeah, like everybody likes me. And it's just like, okay, so that's good. Because, you know, she was like a tag team with Anna Jay and she's a tag team with Ty Mello. And then TJ just becomes, we're back to being a tag team. And they kind of like push Harley off to the side. Harley's there with Statlander. Harley's with Willow. Yeah, it's a whole different thing. But she's trying to get Mercedes to team up with her. And yeah, it makes sense that they would potentially be, because I don't know who else Mercedes would team with. So maybe give that a shot. But as far as the match for next week, Mercedes against quote unquote somebody local, I'll agree with, I think it was Meltzer that was saying this. It might have been Alvarez saying like, it doesn't seem like that's going to draw a lot of people to offset the NXT stuff, because it's kind of making an implication that if it was a big enough name, they probably would announce the person, and the big enough name that you could probably think of would be maybe a little bit of a stretch, but Britt Baker does reside in Florida. So like maybe that's where they bring Britt back, but like, I don't know. I'm not feeling it super much because Mercedes is probably not going to drop that title. And there's a good chance that this could end up being the way that both WWE and AEW do at times, where it's like, we don't want to advertise the person because the person's not that big of a deal. So if we advertise a mystery, then at least the mystery angle is more interesting. And for all we know, this could very easily be like, Diamante's from Florida. Woo! And you're like, oh, really? Yeah. But I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that would be like a big deal where it's like, oh shit, it's Mercedes against blank. Can you guys?
No.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either.
But that's again, I just don't think that's the point. First of all, that the like drawing ability of the show, whatever. Fundamentally, if people watch AEW, they're going to watch the AEW show. If they watch NXT, they're going to watch the NXT show. It really doesn't matter. They can announce anybody that would just turn people's attention over. I think it's highly unlikely anyway.
Especially with the report coming out about like NXT's had a better rating than Dynamite for like 48 out of 52 weeks or something like that. So it's like,
again, it's very misleading because it's cable versus network TV as well.
It's a pretty like hard line at this point.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. No one really cares at this point. The only people that really talk about the ratings were things that are really like hardcore WWE people that are just like so obsessed with how much money and how many viewers the Dodo product gets, as opposed to the actual quality of the shows. Well,
and fair enough for the pro AEW people. When they do beat it, they get a lot really of pro AEW people that are online that are like, see, we beat NXT and stuff. People that want to be tribalistic are tribalistic, you know.
It's a far less thing from the AEW side of things.
I think that's from your perspective is a little bit pro AEW on that side too. I see plenty pro AEW people that just crap on anything WWE, the same as the pro WWE people crapping on anything AEW. I don't think people are being fair enough.
A reach from the AEW side, but I mean, just in general, it's there's a constant back and forth about it. And I've mentioned this before. I'm a fan of tribalism when it's
fun.
actually being perpetuated by the companies. Like the best example we always talk about here is the console war. You got Sega running Genesis does what Nintendo don't commercials.
Yeah.
When the people in the companies are like, no, but my friends are there and I'm really happy for that place and I want it to succeed, it makes the fan tribalism seem odd.
And the fans should not be speaking on behalf of the, bookers and the talent and stuff as it is. But I do look at that and I go, okay, well, NXT is trying to offset that. Fair enough. I would offset that too if I knew that there was going to be more competition. But then it's like, you could have tried a little bit harder, NXT. And then when I look at the AEW side and I go, all right, well, it's Mercedes against blank. I think you could try a little bit harder too. AEW, like, both sides are like, you both could do better. And when I'm looking at like Mercedes versus somebody from Florida, Mercedes is probably going to retain. She's probably going to have the same quality match that she has with almost anybody. If it's somebody that's good, she'll have a better match. If it's somebody who's bad, she'll have a worse match. If it's somebody that doesn't matter, it's not going to matter. If it's somebody that's a big deal, then it's already, you're either watching it or you didn't. And if you're the type of person that's into mystery box stuff, like J.J. Abrams is probably fucking loving this, if he ever watches that, then you're hooked on the mystery of it anyway. And you're either going to be excited about the person or you're going to be disappointed. Because that's what mysteries are. You either go, oh shit, somebody's going to fight Seth Rollins at WrestleMania or, Randy Orton at WrestleMania. Who's it going to be? I saw plenty of people that were annoyed as all hell about Joe Hendry being that guy. And then that just completely soured their mood. So mystery angles, I think, only work if you think that the overwhelming audience is going to find it fun. And if it is somebody like Diamante, I think that immediately just makes people go, fuck this, and they just change the channel. Because I don't think Diamante is popular. I got nothing against her, but like I don't think that that's going to be like this person that's been in ROH for the majority of her career. But if it's Britt Baker, some people are going to be more interested because she's a bigger deal. I don't think she's going to get the reaction that she would have gotten in like Pittsburgh, for instance. But I'd be shocked if Mercedes jumps the title to anybody. So I'm hoping it's at least a big enough name that it makes people go, oh, okay, cool. And then they want to watch.
It's going to be Lacey Lane. After she showed up in Ring of Honor, it's going to be Lacey Lane. So I'd just say to everyone, don't get your hopes up for a big time opponent. It's not going to be a big time opponent. The purpose of this match is to set up the fact that Hikaru Shida is coming back and she's going to challenge Mercedes for the title at Wrestle Dream.
That's cool. Yeah, all right.
Doesn't speak to me, but
well,
not everything speaks to me, and
yeah, it's just what it is. So, like,
wait, is that where things are leaning?
Hikaru Shida's said in a recent interview that she's ready to come back to the US. So I imagine that is the likelihood of the direction. Which one of two things. It's either that or it's going to be Sarai. Because Sarai recently appeared on Ring of Honor TV. So she's going to be defending her IWGP Women's Championship against Alice Windsor on the next episode of Ring of Honor. But she could show up on this show and challenge Mercedes and make it a title-for-title match at Wrestle Dream instead. Which adds a bit more stakes to it because obviously Mercedes is a former IWGP Women's Champion, but that is someone that realistically could beat Mercedes because even though she's not familiar to a lot of Western audiences besides that really awful run that she had in NXT, in ring wise she is one of, if not the best women's wrestler in the world. So I don't think it would take long for an AEW audience to get behind Sarai if she was to show up.
She should fight the hometown man.
Please stop. That's the worst.
I'd be lying if I would say I wouldn't fucking do something like that if I were running a company. I'd probably would do that at some point after 10 years or something. So I can't fault them on some dumb ideas here and there. Hangman Adam Page and the Ops beat Death Riders, and then this led to something that I'm not particularly a fan of, but the end result is going to be something I'm a fan of. So Paige, Joe, and Powerhouse Hobbs win the match, and Paige afterward grabs the 2 tag team titles and hands them to Hobbs and Joe. And when he hands the belt to Joe, he just kind of pushes it to his stomach, and Joe doesn't grab it and drops it. And that's your feud for the championship that sparks the feud of Joe being like, hey, fuck you, buddy. And then Paige being like, fuck you. And then, well, you never beat me. Okay, well, then I'm going to fight you for the championship. It's certainly not going to go on my list of favorite storylines of the year, but Samoa Joe is one of my favorites. And Hangman Adam Page beating him at Wrestle Dream and then doing some kind of like, okay, you got my respect thing. Yeah, you know, it's the argument that I have in one way versus another way, where like on paper, to me, this feels weak. But because AEW is a company that's built primarily on don't you want to see this match, it works for the company. Like the feud and the story, very simple. Got a trigger that I'm not a particular fan of. But at the end of the day, do I want to see Samoa Joe versus Hangman Page? Well, as much as I know that Page is going to retain the title, I'd much rather see that than to see Hangman Page against somebody that I'm less interested in, who I know is going to beat anyway. You know what I mean? The way that, you know, in WWE, if it was like, well, do you want to see the Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles feud? It wasn't a great feud, but I'd rather see that match than Cody against somebody like, you know, he retains over Humberto Carrillo. Like, of course I'd go AJ Styles. And if you don't have a big heel for Paige to go up against and build a big story around or anything right now, if you want to just do the Wrestle Dream thing with Joe, I would prefer title matches and feuds to have more dynamics other than this. But, you know, Joe and Paige are going to have a good match.
I don't love the setup. I hope you understand that I don't mean this in a way other than what I'm about to explain. It felt too WWE for me, where it was just like, fuck, we're starting to book too many pay-per-views. We need a match. These two are gonna have a disagreement, and we're gonna do it at the pay-per-view. Which, again, like Tony has just said, the end result's gonna be great. I want to see that match. I miss when the pay-per-views were a little staggered, so that they could have had time to create a nice story for Joe to fight Hangman. Or if you're going to just do it quick, do it at Title Tuesday, you know? But
yeah, that actually would make a little bit more sense to me if it was just like, you know what, then next week we could do this match.
I understand, though. You're booking a lot of things. You got to save some stuff for some spots. I get it completely. It's just I wish, you know, if you were going to pull the trigger on this, I think this is a story Joe could have had a lot of fun with.
I think we need to give a chance to the actual feud to build and how they progress it in the next couple of weeks. Like, the initial trigger might be a bit like either weak or a bit like immediate, but I think these two, especially Joe, have the ability to make us care about it by the time the actual match takes place. So, you know, the result might be like not in doubt because it seems unlikely they'd put the title back on Joe at this point. But I think that, first of all, well, as you said, like the match itself should be great, but you know, give them a chance to actually tell the story before we're immediately saying it's not a good story.
At least it's not a good start to the story. They have a chance. Yeah, there's always.
I think it's a totally fine start. I think it's a totally fine, solid start to the story because, you know, these things actually happen. It's like that's more realistic than some sort of like I don't know, something that's like more just like dumb or preposterous. I think it's like, you know, they got into each other's way in the match, and they got Joe felt like he was being disrespected, so he got in Hangman's face, and Hangman's the one that made the challenge off the back of that. So, because Hangman's a fighting champion, I think it fits both of their characteristics. And Joe's not going to turn down a title opportunity if it's offered in his face. So,
to me, it reads as that Family Guy character that says "Big Whoop, want to fight about it." that kind of thing. Toni Storm wants a rematch with Chris Statlander because who is she without the belt? And Stat's like, all right, well, then we do it. So Stat will retain the championship, and then Storm will either flip out or she'll be like, okay, you know, I can still put on a good show without it, and I respect myself more. Or yeah, I mean, that's when we get into Wrestle Dream predictions, but kind of feel bad a little bit for Tymello. She's like, oh, I'm stepping back into the ring. This will be fun. I'm going to lose. It's like, damn, okay.
It's not like it's her first match back. She's had quite a few matches since going back, so.
But it is one of those things where it's like, yeah, I mean, she could have potentially had a match on like some other show and just beaten, you know, she beats Robin Renegade on Collision or whatever, and then.
Yeah, she did a couple of like months ago when she came back.
So why were they acting like this was her first match back then?
Might have been her first singles match, but she's won tag matches since she's come back.
Yeah, that's as standard as you can get. Champion lost a belt. Champion wants a rematch. You know, I like the rematch clause for the most part.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just a means of like Chris can just put her in the back, in like the rear window, and you can have like yeah, it makes sense because Tony's basically saying, I didn't lose one-on-one, I lost in a four-way. I know I was the one that made the four-way challenge, but I need to know that you can beat me one-on-one. And so, yeah, I imagine that, yeah, she'll lose to Statlander and then move into the tag team title tournament.
Speaking of tag teams, GO8 beats the Swirl, and then afterward, the Hurt Syndicate comes out, and MVP says, I lost, and I've taken a step back in wrestling, but I could still fight better than you. So let's have a street fight next week. Cool.
Yeah, should be fun.
Yeah. Will we see a new member? Who knows? I'm looking forward to it.
And then, oh god.
Oh god. No, I was just gonna say I hope that the actual street fighting is more akin to like the parking lot brawl stuff, rather than okay, we're just gonna fight around the ring and the ringside area. Because I think AEW does parking lot brawls better than anybody, and I'd like to see that.
And Darby Allin and Chris Statlander beat the Will Yuta and Marina Shafir contingent of Death Riders, leading to Moxley and Pac and the rest beating the shit out of Darby Allin, and Mox saying, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to make you quit. Because there they are, a quit match. So I liked that.
Yeah, it was a fun little fight between the four people. I thought that they intermingled the men and women, like being violent on each other pretty well. Like they didn't like hold back too badly on that side of things. But it was mostly obviously Statlander fighting Shafir and Allen fighting Yuta. The major spot, or the spot that made me wince the most, was dropping Marina Shafir foot first on the thumbtacks, which is I don't know, because it's probably not as bad, but it's probably it felt worse and looked worse than anything from that thumbtacks match with like MJF and Mark Briscoe, just because it's like the feet, and that's like you just never want to see fits. It's like, you know, it's like webbing in the feet, and anything along those lines. It's like that's really gonna hurt.
Did you ever see the Jackass movie?
No, I don't want to talk about that. I did see it.
So
I think I blocked out my memory because of like PTSD or something on those lines. I don't know.
I've never had an issue going on with my foot that's quite like this, but one time a couple years ago, Caroline stepped on a little piece of like ceramic that got embedded into her foot, and she needed to get that like surgically removed. And she has a pretty high threshold for pain. And not only was she talking about, not only was she talking about that was like one of the worst feelings that she's ever felt, but also the doctor that was doing that was like, oh, like, yeah, this is gonna fucking hurt. Like your foot really fucking hurts because it's not meant to be like, you know, like, I mean, obviously if over time people build calluses and stuff like that if they're walking around, but we're not walking around barefoot normally. So we don't have that kind of stuff. And it's typically a pretty sensitive area. So that, as much as the thumbtacks, I would not want a single one of them anywhere on my body. That probably hurts way more than like having them on your arms. And like, I mean, there's a reason why, like, when you get a shot, like I just got my flu shot and my COVID booster, like my arm is still kind of sensitive from that. And like, that's just your arm. That's where like, it's the part where everybody can do that and it doesn't hurt. And it's like thumbtack on your fucking foot. Ouch. So it's it's going on my list at the end of the year awards for best spot.
I love that I've gotten to say this 3 times on this podcast. Shout out to Marina Shafir. Tremendous fucking turnaround. I love watching Marina Shafir do anything. And we're so far removed from, you don't know me, but you know me. Like, she's fucking great. I think she should potentially win the women's world title for a little bit. Not for long, but, a little while.
I wouldn't go that far.
She has been doing, because she's a champion at I can't remember the name of it. Yeah, Defy. Yeah, that's it. And she cut a promo at the end of a match that she took place there, and essentially the whole promo, it was like, she's a little bit I don't say emotional because that makes it seem like it's a weird thing, but it's like she gets quite heated, but it feels more authentic that way. So she does stumble over her lines a little bit, but the general idea is that she cuts that promo similar to how Moxley did from like the early days of the Death Rider storyline, which is basically saying, I want someone to beat me, I want someone to solve me, I want someone to figure out how they can get this going, because she's just tired of winning all the time in Defy and like defending her title multiple times. She needs like someone to prove that, like, well, essentially just take her down. So she is like at least getting more reps on the independent circuit as well, which I think is rubbing off in her ring work as well for AEW in the times that she does get to showcase that more. So yeah, and this was a good showing here. So I'm certainly not saying let's give her the title or anything along those lines, but I'd be happy to see her wrestle more than I would have done so in the past.
This was the best match that I think I've ever seen her have, for what it's worth. Now it's not a one-on-one match, so that's one thing, but like, this is the most fun that I've ever had watching a Marina Shafir thing. She's had go through putting thumbtacks on her foot for it. Credit where it's due. I wouldn't fucking do that. So, any other hot tags we should talk about? That's all the list that I've got, actually.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much covered on that front.
Well, you guys know the score then. That means drop a comment below and tell us what you think about all these things we're talking about. And a reminder for the next 2 weeks or so, I am going to be out of the country, so I do not know for sure how, when, or in what fashion there will be any podcasts coming up, but I'm going to try to potentially get something out there. And, we've got some of the stuff that we had done ahead of time, like the tier lists that are on their way to, they're right now, you can unlock it to be on the $5 tier and up. And then, there's a chance that I could record some stuff here and there. I haven't tested things out. I also don't know what my schedule is going to be like. And, whatever it might be when it comes across those things, I am almost 100% positive I will not be doing a post show for Crown Jewel or Wrestle Dream. But in particular, if I can get something working out, maybe I'll try to do something if I can get Discord to record for just like a few minutes. It might be like a 10-minute podcast or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned and make sure that you're following all of the different things that we talked about before. Make sure that you're following, obviously, Facebook, Twitter, subscribe on YouTube, check out smarkmama.com. It's always good to check out the website because there are things that I post on the website that don't go on the podcast. I know that there are some people that just listen to the podcast, don't want to read articles. Vice versa. There's some people that are just like, I only pay attention to your lists of like roster things and stuff. But the more crossover, the better. And of course, if you want to check out any of the links, you can find amangotree.com is your one-stop resource for everything under a mango tree. So follow everything that's over there. And follow Robin Callum too.
Yep, you can follow me everywhere at Dude Felice and check out Fightful.com and everything under a mango tree.
You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Wigmeister14. Check out the Power Rankings every Saturday on smarkmoment.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. And while you're there, head on over to the Fantasy League, also at wwefantasyleague.com, to see how our rosters are doing and who is picking up points as we head towards that Crown Jewel show, where there'll be plenty of points up for grabs. So, yeah, follow all that stuff along there.
And that's going to do us in for episode 722 of the Hot Tags. And we will see you next time around with whatever it is that we end up doing. But adios for now. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.